So moving into the new year, I like to do yearly goals. They can vary year on year, but I generally have like an approach I like to take, and I thought I would share that with you today. So the way that I usually go about it is thinking about what my kind of overall objectives are, the theme for the year, and then try and put some key results to that, which are generally kind of SMART, so specific, measurable, attainable, and relevant to that overall objective, as well as time bound. But the fact that it's a yearly goal, it will time bound itself. What I'm going to do today is kind of walk you through what my objectives and goals for the year are. And I've got 23 that I've got this year in 3 broad categories. So let's start off with 2023 goals. First category I have is career development, and the theme behind this is to really help me progress my career and increase my satisfaction, performance a bit. And there are 4 main things I have under this. So my first box is having a volunteer role that's developmental. So this is like a trustee role, a NED, or a school governor. My second goal is to really master shortcuts. So one thing with my role is I do quite a lot at the moment of tool usage, like software usage, and it would really save me a lot of time if I could master my shortcuts and spend less time the mouse or clicking on the screen. It's also be useful for my videos. My next one is a bit more ambiguous, but it's to build my network. And really my thinking behind build my network is understanding more about other careers and having touch points to lean upon if I have any issues or need some advice in different parts of my job. And then my final one, which is very role specific, but it's for me to learn more about what other departments within the business that I work in do. So that's my kind of career development goals. The next category I have is then personal development, and one of the things that I'm trying to do is learn the Greek language. So that has its own category, and within here I have some very specific things that I would like to do in the next year. And the first that I have in this is to do the A2 Greek language exam. And the way these exams work is you kind of have A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. So I'm kind of doing the level just a beginner I aim to be, and that will likely be in May, but for the time being I'm just going to do A2 exam. And then my next objective is to pass. And then there are 2 more things within here, and this is all around continuing to learn language, but it's to read 2 books in Greek, the first of which is the first Harry Potter book, and the second of which is the second Harry Potter book. I actually had the first Harry Potter book on my yearly goals last year, but I haven't quite completed it, so I hope to finish that off and then hopefully finish reading the second. My final objective category is again another personal development one, really an overall objective to help me decrease my stress levels and increase quality of life. So there's a number of generic things that sit under here. So the first thing that sits underneath this target is to hit my personal wealth goals, and there are many sub goals to this which I have in a separate tracker, but this is just an overall one so that it ties back into my overall yearly objectives. The next one, which is a bit of a fun one for me, is to be able to do the splits. This is again one I had that on my last yearly goals, but I didn't quite get around to it. This is really just something I've always wanted to be able to do, and I've decided this is a year that I'd really like to get my split. My next one is really to help me increase my time, and that's getting comfortable saying no. And where this really comes from is I like to help other people, which is absolutely fine to do, but there are demands that just take too much of my time and it starts to deteriorate my health. So I just want to make sure that I'm comfortable saying no. I'm going to say no to everything, but if there are things that I realise really aren't that beneficial to the other party and actually going to really potentially take away from my time or harm my mental health, then I'm going to start saying no to them. The next category is to complete 2 physical challenges, and this generally acts as a proxy for continue doing activities, but it's difficult for me to do one thing throughout the year. I tend to work well with kind of a challenge, which I sometimes do and don't train for, but I want to kind of think about maybe there are 2 things that I want to do next year. Not entirely sure what they'll be, but that's something for me to think about in the new year. But I know I want to do 2 physical challenges. And the next one is attend Comic-Con again. So I went last year and that was really, really fun. I actually went as Triss Marigold, which I have a video on how I made it up here. But I'd really like to attend again. And I have some costume ideas, but we'll see how that works out. And then my next one is actually kind of 4 key results in one. So I'll draw 4 boxes, and this is to do 3 creative things a quarter. And I know this is deliberately quite vague, like what are creative things? And this is to give me flexibility. So for example, it could look like 3 YouTube videos a quarter, it should be 12, I count them as being creative. It could be maybe I pick up a musical instrument, that would also count. It could be writing or drawing. It's really just making sure I'm flexing my creative muscles as well as my analytical muscles and logical thinking that I use day in, day out for my main job. And then the next goal I have, which potentially is one of those creative things will be, is writing a guide to starting work. I really want to put together a guide of things that work well, things to do when joining a workplace, and some tips and advice from lots of people. And it's also a way for me to continue working on my writing skills. The next one is reducing my clothes for sale down to 1 box. So as you may be aware, I do quite a lot of clothes selling on the side, which has generated me, well actually I think last year was close to £2,000. And actually I have a video on how I use Vinted to sell my clothes up here. And what I really want to do is reduce the clothes I have at any one time down to sale to 1 box. I currently have 2 boxes, but I would like to reduce this inventory to a smaller amount. And then finally, and this is kind of three goals in one for me, is for me to travel to 3 places. And these could be places I've been to again, but ideally kind of out of the city where I live and in different maybe parts of the world or just different parts of the UK. I think this will be obtainable, but I just want to be able to tick those boxes off throughout the year. And then once I have all those 23 goals, with a couple of them counting as multiple goals, what I then like to do is draw a box in the top right. And what this box is, it kind of acts as a tracker. And every time I tick off one of these boxes down here, then I get to colour in one of the boxes in my tracker in the top right. So throughout the year, I can see it progress. And also I sometimes will put in kind of 4 monthly markers as to where the quarters in the year are, to see kind of how I'm tracking against those goals. What I do like to think about is, yes, these are all goals that I want to achieve, but the reality is that sometimes life gets in the way. So at the end of the year, I typically try to finish around 70% of my goals. I don't always get there, but what I tend to do now is put a box around the top 30% and call that stretch. And that means that it could, for example, be that I miss out on a couple of things like passing the A2 exam, but in my head I've still hit the goals. Yes, I haven't fully fulfilled that goal, but overall I've still achieved what I wanted to for the year. So those are my 2023 goals and the way that I go around my goal planning. Hopefully that was interesting for you. I know you'll probably have entirely different goals, but you may have taken some inspiration either from the goals I have or the way that I track my goals into what you're planning on doing. And I wish you luck with your goals if you're doing goals, but if not, just having a fantastic 2023.